Hi everyone and welcome to TNT. December the 30th, plenty to talk about today. Just one more day to go for 2024 and just like to start by thanking 5-Star Marine for all their support over the past 12 months. I'm pretty sure I'll remember to do it tomorrow as well, but just in case I do, 5-Star Marine at 5starmarinephuket.com for bespoke charter tours out onto Phang Bay off Phuket next time you're in the area. Have to say the weather has been spectacular the last few days. A few drops of rain on Saturday afternoon, but otherwise been very pleasant indeed. Now we do need to start talking about this air crash. The plane departed from Bangkok and was headed to South Korea. I'm pretty sure you're up with the story. This from the BBC.com. South Korea plane crash kills 179 with investigation into cause underway. And I'm pretty sure you've also seen that video of the plane landing 1,000 times. And just a couple of things to check from this freeze frame photo from the video. The wings of the plane show none of the flaps or the slats deployed, which you would have normally for takeoff and landing. The other thing to check, this particular engine, which may or may not have had a bird strike, appears to be in reverse thrust at this time with the nacelle open, allowing for the reverse thrust of the engine, which is meant to slow the plane down. The story says 179 of the 181 people travelling on the Boeing 737-800 were killed, with just 2 survivors, both cabin staff, pulled from the burning wreckage. So I'm guessing these 2 cabin staff were sitting up the very, very rear of the plane on those pull-down jump seats just behind the 2 toilets at the back of the plane. And we can see from the video and photos of the crash that really it was only the tail part of the plane that survived relatively intact. And the plane landed at Muan International Airport in the country's south, skidding off the runway, crashing into a wall in a fiery explosion. So there is actually a concrete wall around the perimeter of this airport, but it wasn't that concrete wall that caused the problem. There was a concrete wall of an instrument facility which houses the instrumentation that helps the pilots navigate their way into the airport, just located off the runway, but that was what the plane actually crashed into. And the story notes that Flight 2216 had been returning from Bangkok in Thailand with 6 crew and 175 passengers. And the passengers included 173 South Koreans and 2 Thai nationals. Now, given that the plane took off from Suvarnabhumi Airport, and given the popularity of South Korea with Thais, I think it's either number 1 or number 2 for a holiday destination for Thai people. It's astonishing that there were only 2 Thais on the plane. And Jeffrey Thomas, the editor of Airline News, said that South Korea and its airlines were considered industry best practice and that both the aircraft and the airline have an excellent safety record. And like everybody else, he's asking these questions. Why was the plane going so fast? Why were the flaps not open? Why was the landing gear not down? So at the moment there are no certain answers to those very pertinent questions. And we'll just have to wait and see what the black boxes reveal. But one thing is very clear, that plane was landing way too fast, probably at least twice the speed it should be landing at. And once, particularly because you've got the wheels up and you're doing a belly landing onto the runway, once you get close to the runway, you've got a thing called ground effect, which really makes the plane sort of hover in the air before it will land. You don't have the drag of the wheels underneath the plane. You don't have any of the flaps deployed. And that plane was really flying very, very quickly. And so it didn't actually get down onto the runway until it was, well, at least half or 2/3 already along the runway, had no chance of stopping. As to why the landing gear wasn't down, there appears there may have been a bird strike before the plane tried to land, but a bird strike on an engine wouldn't disable all the hydraulics in the plane. These planes have got 2 or 3 redundancies of their hydraulic systems, and as far as the landing gear is concerned, you can also lower the landing gear manually on a Boeing 737. But it wasn't the only 737 involved in an incident with hydraulic or possible hydraulic failure over the weekend. Reported in aviation24.be, KLM Royal Dutch Airlines Boeing 737-800 experiences hydraulic failure, skids off runway in Norway. Now, this story does have nothing to do with Thailand, but I just thought it was worth mentioning the coincidence of a similar sort of incident. And this plane, also a Boeing 737-800, was flying from Oslo in Norway to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The pilots decided to divert to the Oslo airport. During landing, however, the aircraft skidded right off the runway into soft grass just before reaching a taxiway. Passengers and crew are being provided assistance. And Flight Radar 24 says the plane suffered a hydraulic problem shortly after takeoff from Oslo. And then another plane in Canada has a crash landing as well. And PAL Airlines Dash 8 wing scrapes runway and catches fire on landing after gear failure. In this case, it was a de Havilland Canada Dash 8 400 turboprop operating under Air Canada. It skidded off the runway, caught fire upon landing at the Halifax International Airport. And according to a media report on CBC, the plane experienced a suspected landing gear issue, and as a result the aircraft could not reach the terminal, and the crew, along with 73 passengers, were transported by bus. And the story notes the news comes amid a series of serious aviation incidents, including the fatal crashes of a Jeju Air Boeing 737 and an Azerbaijan Airlines Embraer E190, as well as a runway excursion, basically running off the runway, of a KLM Royal Dutch Airlines Boeing 37 due to hydraulic failure. A lot of planes flying, a lot of people up in the air at this time of the year. These four incidents completely separate, all have investigations, but just a bad look at this time of the year with four incidents so close together. Okay, a follow-up to a story from the other day involving that young influencer who was a special needs person, either 21 or 27 years old, depending on the different media reports, who was paid to scull a whole bottle of whiskey and died after. Well, there has been an arrest. Bangkok Post reporting arrest made in influencer's alcohol challenge death. Police have arrested a man who they say hired a young social media influencer to guzzle a 350 millilitre bottle of whiskey that led to the latter's death at a party in Chantaburi. And officers had raided the suspect's home on Saturday in search of evidence that might link him to a gambling website. Mr. Ekachat was in the house during the raid. The officers seized a pistol, bank passbooks, and mobile phones and SIM cards for examination to find out whether he was connected to a gambling website, Curriculum 51. During the operation, the officers also informed him they'd obtained an arrest warrant for him on a charge of recklessness causing death in connection with the alcohol drinking challenge that led to the death of Tanakan Kanti, names him here as 27 years old. And police say that during questioning, Mr. Ekachat confessed to the offence. That investigation continues, and when there are follow-ups to various stories and crimes, we do our best to try and bring you the latest on those stories. Now, here's another story that I think we've seen quite a lot of this year. Probably see a lot more of it as more Chinese expats move to live more permanently here in Thailand, particularly around Bangkok. 1 million baht worth of uncertified Chinese goods seized. These are goods being sold in Thailand but haven't gone through the usual food and administration regulations. An official seized more than 25,000 made-in-China products without Thai labels and Food and Drug Administration labels of approval. Authorities confiscated 55 product lines, totalling nearly 26,000 convenience food and ready-to-eat food items valued around 1 million baht. The 8 supermarkets are located in and around the Yaowarat area, that's basically Chinatown, and in the Huai Quang district. And police say the raids were carried out between December the 2nd and the 28th. They were a joint operation with the FDA officials to crack down on shop owners who smuggled products from China ahead of the New Year holidays, during which many people buy goods to make New Year gift hampers. Not surprisingly, there are about as many Chinese supermarkets these days around Chinatown in Bangkok as there are 7-Elevens. As we head to Pattaya. And reported in the PattayaNews.com, fight in Pattaya ends with British Thai man stabbing young Japanese man to death. According to the report, happening in the early hours of yesterday morning, a violent fight on Pattaya 3rd Road. And police found Mr. Sita Tanabe, a 27-year-old Japanese man who had been stabbed in the chest with a knife and was bleeding heavily. And they tried to provide first aid, but he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. And the other person involved, identified by police as Mr. David, a 36-year-old British Thai man, was found with a swollen face, body scratches and a torn shirt. He appeared heavily intoxicated. He reportedly showed no remorse at the scene as he made an "I love you" gesture to the officials and appeared to be smirking. And a knife used in the attack was found at the scene and was collected as evidence. And an eyewitness identified as Mr. Bank told the Pattaya News that before the incident, he and Mr. Sita saw Mr. David arguing with his foreign girlfriend. Both he and Mr. Sita tried to stop the argument, which caused Mr. David to punch Mr. Sita in the face. The situation escalated when Mr. David drew a knife and stabbed Mr. Sita in the chest, causing him to collapse in front of everyone. Now we travel from Pattaya down south to Phuket and to the PhuketNews.com. And the story headline, "Teacher in hot water over molestation claims." A teacher at an elementary Phuket school is under investigation by police after 2 separate complaints of molestation of students were lodged against him by concerned parents. And the first complaint was lodged last Friday, December 27, around 5 p.m, by parents of an 8-year-old girl. In their complaint, the parents explained how their daughter had returned home from school earlier that day and relayed the incident to them, revealing that the male social studies teacher had kissed her on the cheek and touched her stomach in an inappropriate manner. The daughter further explained that the molestation had been taking place for some time and that several of her friends had also been forced to endure it. And a second official complaint was lodged at the same police station a few hours later by parents of another 8-year-old girl that they claim was molested by the same teacher. And the parents added that they were concerned that there was no formal evidence other than the word of the girls themselves, and the parents were hopeful that their combined complaints would lead officers to investigate the teacher further and resolve the issue in due course. And the article notes, no mention was made of the school or the identities of the teacher, the students or the parents in the official report released by the police. Okay, it's the 30th of December, one more day to go for this year. It'll be our New Year's Eve program tomorrow. Thanks for watching today. Thank you to 5 Star Marine, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.